Hey guys, hope you're doing well. There's so much to say, so just hang with me. For context, if you're new, hi, my name's Camden. I move to a new country every month, and normally I'm doing travel tip videos, but this series is a little bit different. This is just unfiltered thoughts. This is where I just kind of reflect on my time spent in a place and do a lot of learning from you guys. So hang with me because we're going to cover a lot of what I think are interesting things. For context, I just spent a full month in Paris. And this is the second time that I'm doing one of these unfiltered videos on Paris. I've been to Paris many times before, I think like 4 or 5, and each time just for a couple of days. But we finally got over and gave it a proper month. And it changed so much for me. So I want to share bits and pieces. I have a lot of questions, and I really want this to be kind of an engaging thing. So I'm going to be asking you guys some questions and want to learn from you in the comments. But one of the things that is most striking, that was just fascinating, when you think of Paris, you could probably relate to this. You have expectations, or you've been influenced, whether it's talking to a family member that has maybe been to Paris, or seeing something on social media, or seeing a movie, or reading about Paris. You're always, I don't know, given some sort of image that helps create in your mind what you expect Paris to be like, and you're getting little glimpses of the Paris that certain people know. For me, a big part of Paris has always been my grandfather. He's probably watching this. Hey, Pops. Paris is his favorite city in the world, so we talk about Paris a lot. And me getting to live this awesome life where I get to experience so many different cultures and so many different cities, he's always curious and always wants to know, oh, but how does it compare to Paris? Because Paris is just, it's at the top for him. And it's been interesting over the years how those answers have evolved. But where I mean to go with this is, it was finally in this trip when I had the full month to be in Paris that I realized we're talking about two completely different cities. And no, they're both still Paris, but his Paris experience and my Paris experience, the cities that we both know and both love, worlds apart. Just couldn't be more different. And I recognize that any influence that you're getting, any perspective that you're getting in Paris is just that. It's a slice. It's the Paris that you as an individual kind of fall in love with and portray out to the world. In fact, what you're going to hear in this video is kind of my portrayal of it, right? It's the version of Paris that I know and that I have come to love. But there's something so cool about recognizing that people from all over the world, even people who are locals and live in Paris, just know a different city and are talking about it in a different way. So have that context. Anytime you interact with anything Paris, it's part of what makes it so special, is there truly is just that much. You can't say that about all cities, because so many cities are wonderful and have lots to offer, but I don't want to say they fit in a box, but there's just less. So it's really cool that you can be talking about two cities while talking about the same place. So that was one thing that, I don't know, I've been pondering quite a bit, but I gotta look over here. I have a couple things that I want to make sure that we touch on. You'll notice in my other Paris reflection video, I initially thought that this place was really overrated. Then I was like, oh no, now I actually really love it, and now I really do think it's completely underrated. I feel like the pendulum always tends to swing, right? People are looking for certain things, and as societies, we tend to get into these groupthink ideas. And right now, it seems like most people say, oh, Paris is overrated. Yeah, there's some big things, but better value elsewhere. There's it's just not what it used to be. So I'm curious for locals. How do you feel about Paris now compared to how it used to be? But for me, who is really, again, in the early stages of fully understanding what I understand as Paris, I now see it as completely underrated. I'm going to share a few reasons why. One of the things, the quality of life is so high. And I recognize that, yes, Paris is an expensive city. There's no doubt about that. But I alluded to the fact that in some of my other videos, it's not as expensive as some people make it out to be. But what it really is that Paris will constantly tempt you to spend more money. And there are really great things to spend your money on if you have that money to spend. But you don't have to spend a lot of money. I think it's kind of one of those traps that a lot of people fall into, especially tourists, right? You're on vacation and you want to go, all out, right? You might only have the opportunity to get to Paris once in your lifetime. So I understand that, but getting to live like a local for, the last month really just helps show the other side of that, where yes, this isn't a budget place by any stretch, but there's so much to do for free. And you really don't need to be spending that much money. But if and when you are ready to spend money, there are things that are well worth your time. One of the things that I did for the first time was the catacombs. And for those who aren't familiar, the Paris catacombs, that should probably be close to the top of your list of things to do. Just truly incredible. And for those who are completely oblivious to this, Pops, my grandpa, I call him Pops, he was oblivious to this, even though Paris was his favorite city. Just underground, kind of in the south side of the city and throughout the city, you have these catacombs where you have just, I don't know what the proper terminology is, underground world graveyard. You have bones of just centuries of Parisians and people who are buried down there, and their bones are stacked. I don't know. We don't need to get into the details of it, but it was just a fascinating thing to learn about and go and experience. And there were so many of these types of things. I don't know how that relates to what I was talking about with spending your money. I guess the catacombs is a paid experience, not sponsored in any way. So nothing in this video is. But there's just so much to go and explore. And each time you go back, there's more and more to see. And I mentioned this in my first reflection video, that I think one of the things that I was doing wrong in my first few experiences in Paris was I was trying to do too much. There's just too much. You could spend a lifetime exploring everything in Paris, and you're just better off saying, hey, there are these couple things that I want to do, and yes, I'm going to go and see these, but otherwise I'm going to try to get a better understanding of the culture, really just sit and watch and just enjoy, because you're not going to enjoy if you're just going spot to spot to spot to spot. It's just different. A couple other things that stuck out. One thing that is a question, especially for locals, especially this trip, I noticed that a lot less cars, and it sounds like there's some legislation and kind of initiatives by the government to have less cars on the streets, and it definitely seems like that is having an impact. I recognized for the first time, wow, the biking infrastructure is phenomenal. It's not quite on what you might put it at Amsterdam or Copenhagen, but the biking infrastructure really was fantastic. But how has the car experience been since whatever new policies have been in place where they're somehow deterring you guys from driving? It's made the streets a lot quieter, and I might be biased, and I'll tell you why in a second, but I want to know, what's that transition been like? And if you're somebody who has gotten to experience both the old and the new, which do you prefer and why? What are the things that some of us tourists are kind of missing in that? I don't know. It was just something that I was kind of wondering, and chatted with a few people, but I want to get some of your guys' takes as well. But one of the reasons I said I might be a little bit biased, one of the best decisions that I made for this last month was the time of year that I came and visited Paris. I've done it in the holiday time, like in December before. I think most others were in the summer and fall, which is high tourism season. This time, obviously, it was January. Not always an advisable time to go to Paris. The weather was cold. It was gloomy. It added to it somehow. I think the way that it added to the experience most was, one, things were more affordable. Two, and the reason that things were more affordable is there were just very few tourists. And when you get to experience a city where, yes, there are still tourists, but just not overwhelmed with tourists, you just get to interact with it in a different way. A couple examples. I took Sarah to the Eiffel Tower. We had been to it, but she had never gotten to go, up on top. So we went up to the top level is under renovation, but that mid-level where you can go on top is open. So we did that. And it was just a surreal experience, because we were like the only people up there. We had no reservations ahead of time. We walked straight in, bought our tickets there on the spot, no line to wait in, hopped right on the elevator, went straight up, and there were, a few people up there, but like I have pictures where it's like, it is literally just Sarah staring off the Eiffel Tower overlooking Paris, and there's just nobody around, which is just a completely different experience than you'll get pretty much any other time of year, where that is just packed and the lines would be, sometimes like over an hour long, maybe longer, like just kind of crazy. And it felt like that everywhere. Catacombs, same thing. We had no line, walked straight in. Notre Dame, same thing, walked straight in. Like there just weren't lines anywhere. And it's hard to put a price tag or value on that, because I imagine that for many tourists, especially those who are only going to have that opportunity to get to Paris once, they want to do those big sites, right? You probably want to see that. And if you are going in the summer, you have no choice but to wait in those lines. And again, it's just a different experience. So I thought that was just a wonderful choice on our part. If you're willing to brave the cold, I can say it was well worth it. But another thing that kind of ties back in with that first point that I made about talking about two different cities is when you have the opportunity to spend a little bit longer in a place, you have the time to really get to know neighborhoods and just understand the way that locals live. And you tend to choose intentionally to stay away from those hot spots where tourists might be. So we were over in the 11th district. So if you're from the 11th, I feel like a special connection with you now. It was an awesome place for us. Definitely a spot that we'll go back to. But I'm so curious for locals or people who, again, have different versions of Paris that they like, which area of town, which district were you staying in? What does each district mean to you? Because I know most tourists, it's going to be those 1 through 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there. Typically are the tourist hotspots. I know you got Montmartre, but 18. But I'd love to know just kind of what are some of the more unique perspectives that you don't hear talked about a lot, depending on those different sides of town. Because truly the culture and just how you go about your daily life, similar but so different in their own unique ways. And I don't know, it just feels special. Going back to my list, this was something that really surprised me in a just tremendously positive way. And I talked about this in my newsletter. The link will be down below if you want to sign up for that. I basically just blabber every week like this. Libraries. Every city has libraries, right? I know a lot of people kind of roll their eyes and are like, libraries, that's boring. The libraries in Paris, outside of them just being beautiful, it was incredible to see just the sheer amount of libraries. I think when I got my library card, they said it was like 52 or 57, somewhere in that range, of public libraries that my library card got me into. And yes, you can get a library card even as a tourist. You do have to bring your passport and just say, hey, this is where I'm staying, and they'll issue you a card. So I wouldn't recommend that as a tourist. There's no reason that a tourist would want to do that unless you are there for a little bit longer term like me. But exploring the libraries and having the different feel and just seeing how, again, the culture interacts with that was fascinating. And the sheer amount of it, like, again, coming from the US, we have libraries. They're not always very well funded. And most cities have like one, maybe 2 or 3 that are worth checking out. I only made it to maybe 8 to 10 of them, and I'd say all of them were well worth the visit. Like, you could spend a whole trip in Paris just exploring the libraries, and it was just, again, just one of those things that was special. If you are familiar with me, I love food. I really got to branch out and try so many different places, and it's such a cool place because yes, you could spend a bajillion dollars on fancy Michelin star meals, and I certainly enjoy doing that. But in Paris, somehow this month I didn't end up at a single Michelin place because you don't have to. The quality of food, the quality of cuisine is just so high. They seem to take such pride in it. And this is one thing that I think was a complete misconception. I think I touched on this in the last video too, but I'm doubling down on this. Service in Paris is not rude at all. Tourists are just completely off base when they think that that service is rude. I felt like it is just one of the warmest, kindest places to receive service in the world. Especially, again, if you start with the bonjour. You have to go in and just say bonjour and then switch to English if you don't know French. And that's me. I don't know French. I'm terrible with it. But truly, it's fantastic. So don't go in with that misconception. And one other thing that it was just so special culturally that, I don't know, it's again hard to put a price tag and a value on it, is from a safety standpoint. I think media a lot of the time tries to, well, obviously they try to cash in on the scary things, the things that they think will sell, unfortunately. And I think Paris gets this rap as being this really dangerous, unsafe place. Sarah and I were walking through, we were walking from the Eiffel Tower to the 11th district back home, which is like an hour and a half, close to 2 hour walk, depending the route that you take. And we were doing this at like from midnight to 2 a.m. So this was late, and it was on a Friday night. So there were lots of people out enjoying life, dancing on the streets, drinking, having partying, like just, having fun. We felt so safe that entire walk back. One of the things that really stood out to us is in American culture, as I probably don't have to tell you because I'm guilty of this in many of my videos, is we're pretty loud. And that's certainly something that I could say about the UK folks as well. They, especially when they drink, they get loud and rowdy. The French culture, and I could be off on this because I'm not your party guy, so I had limited experience, but every time that we did walk outside late at night on those party nights, it was just the most comfortable experience because you're like, yeah, those people are over there and they're drunk, they're drinking, they're having fun, but there was just, I don't know, there was just like a respect where it wasn't yelling at the top of their lungs. Nobody was getting sloppy. Like it was just, I don't know, it just felt safe. And Sarah was really the one who pointed it out, especially, being a woman. She's like, I would feel completely fine walking this whole walk alone, like just her, which I'm like, yeah, you can't say that about a lot of cities. So that was something to note. One of the last things that so special, and I don't know if this was just kind of in that 11th and 6th where I was hanging out a lot or just in Paris as a whole, but it feels a little bit like a New York in the sense that everybody is there and is doing something. There's just this special energy and like, to a certain degree, go-getter attitude. I don't know if I'm articulating that correctly, but one of the coolest things about it is the expression that you're allowed to kind of explore and are almost encouraged for. Like, I know obviously we think of Paris and it's like, oh yeah, fashion. And I think a lot of us, especially folks who aren't particularly well dressed, this guy, kind of roll their eyes and are like, oh yeah, you can dress fancy, you can buy nice clothes and stuff. But when you walk the streets and you see how that kind of plays out, especially over a longer period of time, you start to have this understanding that nobody cares how you're dressed. You could dress, and I don't know, the top end of clothing. I know it probably gets stupid expensive, but you could be in all fashion designer stuff, or you could be, in hand-me-down stuff. It doesn't matter. You could have your hair long like mine right now, which pops. I know it is time for a haircut. That hurt. Or you could have, a buzz cut or anything, anything on the spectrum goes. And it didn't feel like you were discriminated against or just had any judgments. Like everybody was like, hey, I don't care what you do you. But whatever you do it, right? Like whatever you want to be it. You're encouraged to do that. And again, that's just not something that you have in all parts of the world. And it was just, again, special to get to watch and be a part of. Maybe that's why my hair is so long at the moment. No, it's just I've been lazy, but it really is something that is special. So another question for locals: how does that play out over the course of your lifetime? Is that something that is kind of new? And is this more, I don't know, 2020s, trend where it's like, yeah, express yourself and there's less of, social faux pas and whatnot? Or has it always been that way? Because it's fascinating to see how it all plays out right now. And again, a really special part of the culture. So anyways, I know I asked you guys a lot of questions. I know I rambled. I want to learn from you guys. It's my favorite part in this series is you guys are always great about leaving thoughtful, comments and questions down in the comment section. I read all of them. I do my best to respond to as many, as I can. So I really do look forward to seeing all those and hope to engage with you. So I hope everything that I talked about makes at least a little bit of sense. Again, it probably doesn't because it's a different city for everybody, and that's what makes it so special. So hope you guys enjoyed. Looking forward to reading your comments, and we'll catch you guys next time.